it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with audio engineer and musician Luke discussing the importance of getting credit on Anderson .Paak's Grammy Award-winning album, why interning and mentors in the business is important, and how the process of engineering is only 10% technical. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with audio engineer extraordinaire Luke.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. I'm doing good.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So usually you're right there recording these.
I know.
For me.
It's weird being on the other side of the glass. I don't find myself being Actually, I've been working on music recently, so I've been recording more, but it is weird being the one in front of the microphone.
Yeah, definitely. But you're pretty good at this talking thing, so I'm excited to get down and see what your story was.
Oh, yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah?
It's like a bottle of lightning. Things just happen next day, and then before I know it, my life has just done a 180.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was into music as a kid. I played in bands. I was into it, but, I guess I reached a certain level of sentience in 11th grade where I was oh man, I'm an adult now. I need to figure out what I want to do.
In 11th grade, you realized?
Yeah, I was in computer apps class. I was in learning about databases and sitting here being oh my God, this sucks. Life is going to suck. We all have to get jobs and this is going to suck.
Right.
And so I remember, no one ever actually did the work in computer apps class. They were playing Counter-Strike or Call of Duty on the computers, and the teacher didn't really care because the teacher was a coach, and he's oh, do whatever you want. So I was just researching about music, and I came across this engineering thing. I saw the pictures with the guys, sitting in front of the big boards, speakers. I was oh, this is cool. Is this a thing?
Right.
And so I'm researching about it and come to find it is a job, it is a career. People do this. And I was well, I want to do this. And so can you learn this in a school? And so I'm researching, and oh, you can do it in a school.
Right.
And I don't tell anybody about this. Don't tell my parents. But in the back of my head, I'm okay, I think I'm gonna shoot for this. So I come across a school. It's called Berkeley. It's in Boston. And there's other schools, and the other schools are great too. But this one just seemed it was a little bit more accredited. It was a 4-year thing. You got an actual degree. It just seemed if I had to explain to my parents that I wanted to go to music school and engineering school, I needed to have a little bit of weight behind it. I don't think they would have let me go to a trade school or anything like that.
Right.
But it was a music school first before an engineering school, so I had to learn how to read music and play guitar and do all this stuff. And I had to fly to Chicago to do an audition, and my audition didn't go that great, but my aunt was definitely flirting with the guy giving the audition.
Nice.
Definitely kept coming into the room.
Shout out to Auntie.
Yeah, Aunt Sis. And so if it wasn't for her, I don't know if it would have went as great. But I ended up getting in.
Nice.
And I was really excited, and my mom was really excited. And then
why did you feel the audition, you bummed the audition? Was it bad?
It wasn't bummed, but musicians, they're cool and they're kind of whatever. And so I couldn't gauge them. And then there was an interview process, and I knew I did good on the interview process, but I couldn't gauge the other two guys. And so that's how I was I probably didn't do that great. But I ended up getting in, and it was great because I didn't apply to any other schools.
Oh, wow.
I was I was just going to do this.
You was F it.
Yeah, I was just going to do it and then just go with the punches. And I was I'm from Charlotte, so I was I could go to App State or go to Charlotte or ECU or whatever as a backup plan. But I actually got cold feet, and I was I didn't want to do it. I don't know. I got scared or nervous about can I really do it? Can I make money? Can I make a living? Can I live a normal life?
Right.
And so I backed out. But my mom actually forced me to go.
Nice. Shout out to Mom.
Yeah. She's the one that was no, you're going, you're doing this. You set out to do it. So she forced me to go and got me on the track.
Nice.
Went to school, did the whole school thing. School was great. You learn a lot. You make
you went
friends.
to Berkeley. It's you're around musicians and people who are pretty creative all the time, or even on the business side, you're learning a lot of different things, I'm sure, and meeting a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. It was cool experience because it was a lot of foreign kids. And so you're just growing up in Charlotte, in the suburbs of Charlotte, it's you kind of all the people are the same. Mm-hmm. It's all the houses look the same. Everything's the same. Everyone works at Bank of America or whatever, know? Mm-hmm. And, but it was cool to be immediately thrown into this weird, crazy city in Boston and all these weird, crazy kids. And then I started acting weird and crazy and because I was going to art school and like, I don't know, it like brought out like a weird side of you.
Yeah.
But school's great and and you learn a lot, but it sets the foundation. But really where the story gets interesting is like my transition into
engineering,
into like the actual real world.
Oh, true.
There's two paths that run parallel.
Mm-hmm.
One path is like the patchwork path,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other path is just like my freelance path.
Mm-hmm.
My freelance path started first, and I was like, well, I'm just going to apply for an internship in New York at Avatar Studios, which was like a huge mega studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it, of course, because there's always a need for interns. There's always a need for someone to go get food and stuff.
Right.
So I got it. So I moved to I didn't finish school. I just left school and went. I was like, I need to go now. Like, school is killing me right now.
When did you leave school? How long did you stay?
I was there like 2.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I just left, got up and left.
Wow.
I don't know if my parents understood it, but they were like, okay, we don't know. We don't know what to do. So I left and I went and did the internship and I hated it. It sucked, But
Right,
it's fine.
of course.
New York sucked. You woke up and you just threw away $20.
Yep.
You just take it and you just throw it away.
Yep.
That's just how it felt. But I was living on my sister's couch. Like, bless her soul for having me for 3 or 4 months, but it's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And at the end of the internship, I told them I was actually thinking about, moving to Atlanta. And the owner of the studio was a really nice guy. His name was Kirk. And he's like, I know a guy in Atlanta. I'll give you his info. And the guy he knew, he spoke on a panel with like in some random city, like in like Asheville or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew this guy. His name was Billy Hume. And so I reached out to him and just like started making connections. So I was like, okay, when I come to Atlanta, I'll come say what's up to you.
Right.
While I was interning in Avatar, I found Patchwork on the internet. And I remember like calling Patchwork and Toya picking up the phone, working at the front desk, and I'm asking her about the internships. And she's like, all right, yeah, send your resume into, patchworksinternship.com. Okay. And I was like, oh man, they're not going to call me back. I was like, she didn't seem that into
Right.
the question. But
She hears that question like 30 times a day.
Yeah, I could just tell. Like, she just like went into autopilot. She's like, yeah, send your resume in. All right, cool. But so I didn't send my resume in. I was like, I'm just gonna worry about it when I get down there.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm moving to Atlanta, and I'm just gonna figure it out.
Why Atlanta? I mean, before you even figured out you had a connection there, like, why? What attracted you to Atlanta?
I felt like Nashville, was too oversaturated. And I felt like Los Angeles was too far away and too expensive. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let me just try Atlanta. It's close to home, Charlotte. So like if something bad happens and like I end up being homeless, I could just trek on home. And it would be like no harm done. It's
right.
Okay. So I was like, I'll just try Atlanta. Whatever happens, happens. And then I've been here ever since.
Nice.
So my mom and dad, they drive down to Atlanta and they find an apartment, cheap apartment. And I just drive straight from Boston all the way down with my girlfriend. She flew up and we just trekked it on down. Yep. It was like a 17, 18-hour drive.
Ooh, I know.
Yep.
Sounds intense.
Moved in. And then I had made contact with another engineer in Atlanta while I was at Avatar, just like cold emailing people. Mm-hmm. And his name was Exit. That's how he went by. His name is Mark Exit Goodchild. And he said, okay, well, when you get to Atlanta, let me know and I'll pick you up and show you around. And so day one, I moved to Atlanta and we get settled. Day two, I hit Exit up. And I'm like, hey, I'm in Atlanta. If you're free, can you come pick me up and, whatever, and we can go to lunch or whatever. He's like, sure, I'll come pick you up right now.
Nice.
Or next day or whatever, can't remember. And I remember him picking me up in like this really sick Audi A7, and I thought I was cool.
I love that.
But he was just picking me up.
Yeah.
And he was driving me around town, being like, okay, well, this is MJQ, this is Ponds. Like this is like
showing you the spots.
Yeah, like this is Northside Drive where all the studios are at. Just driving me around for like an hour. And when he went to go drop me off, he gave me a little Post-it note with like a bunch of names with emails and numbers on it of people that I could reach out to in Atlanta,
Nice.
which is incredible.
Right.
It was like a personal I could be like, oh, Exit gave me this. And so one of the names on the list was Miles Walker, who was someone that I was trying to get in contact with because he was a Berkeley alum living in Atlanta and was successful. So I was like, well, we have like a thing.
Right.
And so I hit him up and I'm like, hey, I'm Luke. Exit gave me your info. Would it be cool if I just like come and like just ask you a few questions or whatever? And he's like, sure, come whenever. I was like, I'll be there tomorrow. So now we're at like day 3.
Right.
And so I meet Miles, and he's super nice. Like anyone that's met Miles knows he's like a super nice guy. And I'm telling him about like what's going on and what I'm trying to do. And he's like, well, I came up at Patchwork, and I would recommend Patchwork. And he's like, all the studios in Atlanta are great, but I can just speak from experience with like Kurt and Mike and everyone there. And it's like a community. Like I came up at Patchwork, and I recommend Patchwork. So I was like, cool. Like I'm going to do Patchwork now. He just like made the decision for me. I was like, okay, cool. That's what I'm going to do. Cause I didn't know any better. There was other studios, Silent Sound, Tree, Zach, but I didn't know anything about them. They were just buildings to me. Exactly. But here I had someone that I like trusted right away, and he was like, go to Patchwork. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to Patchwork. And he's like, well, hold on, wait a second. So he turned around and he starts like tapping on his keyboard. And I didn't know that he was actually texting Corey Anders, who's an engineer here, who ran the intern program at the time. He's like, hey, I got this kid, Luke. He's looking for an internship at Patchwork. And Corey hits him back right away, and he goes, that's crazy. I'm actually doing interviews for interns tomorrow. Sweet. So Miles turns around and is like, can you do it tomorrow? And I'm like, I'll be there tomorrow.
That's crazy.
Day 4 in Atlanta, I'm sitting right there, and Corey's right here, and I'm interviewing for an internship at Patchwork, and got the internship obviously, and like went on. But it's weird, like my whole experience of Atlanta has been through the eyes of Patchwork, and it's cool. And as I was doing the Patchwork thing, I reached out to Billy and was hanging out with him, and he was doing other things, like he was doing like country and rock music, and I went out and hung with him and would hang out with him and learn stuff. And I just told myself, I was like, if I'm just going to move to Atlanta and have nothing set, because no one was going to hire you, no one's going to tell you, yeah, you can have an internship if you move down here, because no one wants that responsibility of telling someone, oh yeah, like you can come do this for free if you move down here. It's like that's too much liability.
Right.
So it was really like you had to move first, right, before anyone would even talk to you. And so I just moved, and I just like had an apartment. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. Didn't know where I was. Didn't have a car at first. Thanks, Dad, for letting me borrow a car. Nice. That I like ran into the ground. It blew up right over there on 10th Street.
Really?
Smoke and everything. Yeah.
Oh shit.
But you just had to come down and just do it. And I just told myself I was going to come down here and just do it. Yeah. Like I had to pay bills. Like my dad wasn't going to take care of me. His thing was at 18 years old, you're out. You go to college, who cares? You need to go work and you figure it out. Because he had 8 kids. He can't take care of you. So I was like, okay, well, I need to figure it out on my own. So I did the internship for a year. I worked 3 different jobs.
Where were you working like while trying to intern, and like how was that process of even trying to balance all of that?
It's hard. I was teaching guitar lessons, which was easy because I was like, okay, like I have this music thing, like let me at least like lean in on that. So at least I'm doing something music. Right, cool. Right. And I was working at Publix, which sucked. It was so horrible. I still have trouble going into Publix now.
Swear it was traumatizing?
Yeah, traumatizing. I grew up working in grocery stores because both of my parents worked at the grocery store. They were like managers and whatever. So like right when I was in 9th grade, I was at the grocery store working. So
you felt like it felt like the past. Yeah,
I was like back to like where I started. And I had like all these like weird repressed memories about like Publix, and I'm just like, oh man, I can't be doing this. So that was like that was a bummer.
Publix subs for you, Luke?
The pub subs are really good though. I do like the pub subs, but my manager at the Publix was cool, and he understood. And though whenever I called out, he was like kind of bummed out about it, but at least he was like, okay, like I get like you're not trying to be like a Publix career guy, right? And then I also worked for a video game company, editing audio, which was cool, and that was towards the tail end of Publix when I got fired for walking out to come do a session here. Yeah, got fired. Yeah, Toya called me and she's like, oh, like there's a session, it's like 8 p.m. until like 6 a.m. Can you do it? And I was like, sure. And so I just like kind of took my apron off and just walked out the door. And like the store manager, I thought was going to like fight me in the parking lot. I swear. He was so mad. His name was Jim. I never saw him again. But he was so mad at me.
I'm sure. Because that kid's only responsibility was that. And you're like, well, I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, because now he had to close the pub. It was like, he was like the store manager. He didn't want to close the produce department. My department manager did call me the next day. He's like, hey, if you want to come back, it's cool. Like, da-da-da-da-da. But I was like, nah, man, I'm just going to like focus on like doing guitar lessons. I was like, if I focus on just doing the guitar lessons, I can make enough money to make by in the internship. And, right. And then luckily after a year of interning, I was able to start like getting sessions and do freelance work. And start making like money,
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. And so many things that you've already said. Why do you think that the internship, and I've talked to two engineers here that all go through the process, but I want to know from your perspective why interning here specifically was important or good for you versus like even interning at the studio you were interning at in New York.
Interning at this studio was awesome because it was the complete opposite of the one in New York. And the New York one, it was cool. Like, it was cool, but it was like super classic. Like, you are the janitor boy.
Right.
You are the coffee boy. And that sucked. And, you know, I cleaned bathrooms every day, multiple times a day. And it was hard because, like, it was a huge studio and they had, like, orchestra. And so there'd be, like, 40 people all, like, using one bathroom. And I'd just be like, oh, man, like, this is, like, the 5th time I've, like, cleaned this bathroom today.
Right.
And so it sucked. But when I came down here and found out about this internship and how it's, like, it's way more free. And it's, like, what I heard, you know, Luther talking about, it's on your own merit. What you make out of it is what you're going to get out of it,
right.
Which suited me because I was a go-getter. I was like, well, this is great. I'm going to make it happen. And they actually let you sit in on sessions, which was unheard of. Up at the other studios I worked at, like, you didn't even, like, touch the door handle
right.
unless, like, someone, like, opened it for you and you walked in, you know? But here it was, like, free and it was, like, cool, and there was, like, a community, and it's like, okay, we're all in this together. Even the other interns, like, at the other studios, there was, like, this, like, weird animosity between all the other interns because, like, you knew you were, like, competing against each other and stuff. But here it was, like, more of, like, a teamwork. It's like, okay, this, you know, obviously, like, interning, it does suck. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, interning sucks, you know, like, you're working for free, but we're all in it together. We all have a common goal. We all want to do this, so we're all going to stick together and figure it out.
Right.
And that's what was cool about here, and that's why this place has, like, more of, like, a family community thing, is because, you know, everyone had to intern, and so everyone gets, you know, this, like, mindset of we're in it together. And if we all work together, then individually we can all shine.
Right, absolutely.
That's what was cool about interning here, and I picked up on that quick. And, you know, Miles mentioned that when I talked to him first. He was like, there's not a place like Patchwork. Studios don't have staff engineers. It wasn't a thing.
Right.
But Patchwork does. And because of that, there is, like, a sense of, like, unity. Because engineering's a one-player game. There's only one guy working on the computer or one guy mixing a song. But together here with a team and a support system and people you can bounce ideas off in multiple rooms, it was like, well, this is a place that I feel like I could, like, stay at and work at, and all the people are great. Whereas, like, engineering can be a lonely thing, you know?
Absolutely. Do you... I know that you kind of spearheaded, or I don't know if you were the one who came up with the idea for the Engineer's Corner podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it was just like a
spur of the moment thing. Like, Oz was just looking for more content. Like, today's all about content, you know, and it's all about putting yourself out there and showing stuff. And so we come up with this idea of, like, having a podcast and just having people, like, you know, our peers and staff members talk on it and just, like, talk about, like, issues in audio or how to do things. And it was cool, you know, it was cool to, like, hear, like, I heard other people's, like, it's hard to get all of us together at once because, you know, everyone's working and so busy. So it was, like, nice to have, like, everyone together and, like, talking about, like, the same or similar cool ideas, you know, which was cool.
Yeah. I mean, how... obviously here, even with this podcast and with, like, the other content that we have or the workshops that we have, we're always big on, like, educating people and not, like, holding information or withholding information. So that's why I was more so asking, like, how with that podcast in particular are you continue to educate people in just your world and your space and, like, the things that you deal with every day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I teach one of the intern classes here. Like, when you come and intern at Patchwork, like, you have to go through, like, a series of, like, 3 classes. And I teach one of them because I'm passionate about sound and about audio. And if someone wants to show interest in it, I'm willing to, like, show them, like, hey, like, this is how this works. This is how you do this. This is how you act, you know? And people, I like seeing when the light bulb goes off. I really do, like, dig that. Like, when I'm showing some of the younger kids, like, how some of these recording consoles work, or, like, you know, what's really cool about this microphone, it's like a light bulb goes off. And it reminds me how I used to be, like, when I was learning about things, and, like, you feel like you leveled up, like it was like in a video game. It's like, oh, like, because, like, audio is weird, it's mysterious, like, no one really, there's no, I mean, now with the advent of, like, you know, technology, social media, YouTube, you can find things out. But before then, you know, someone had to show you this stuff, and you didn't know unless someone showed you. And so it was really cool. Like, it felt like you, like, unlocked a new level, or, like, you're in a game and you, like, you opened the treasure chest and, like, you learned this thing. And that's cool to, like, see that in some of these kids, you know? But yeah, I'm just passionate about it and willing to, like, show anybody about what I know and what I do, because it is a weird thing. Like, I still don't think my parents really kind of know what I do.
Of course.
They know I work like in a recording studio, but that's the main thing about it.
Right.
And then what I like mostly educate people about is all this like recording stuff, and all the gear is great and it's fun, but it's really only 10% of the job.
What's the
Engineering is really like a people's job. Mm-hmm. It's really about understanding people, understanding social cues, and like understanding what someone else's vision is. Mm-hmm. Like understanding, okay, like this is the music they got, or this is the music they want to record, mm-hmm. and this is like their idea, and to think about where they're trying to go and how they're trying to get there. That's the real job of an engineer. The technical stuff is all just muscle memory at this point. You hear something, you do it, da-da-da-da-da. You don't even think about it. Mm-hmm. But it's more about dealing with people and their emotions and their intentions and how it all kind of mashes together into like this thing. Because what's cool about a studio is you walk into this room and there's nothing. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. There's an idea. Mm-hmm. And then when you leave, this idea has become something. Right. That's the cool thing. And that's the actual job of an engineer.
I'm so happy that you said that, because I think oftentimes, when I talk to people who are interested in this space, especially on the behind the scenes, from producing to whatever, they don't factor in having to actually work with people. Like, they're just like very timid, or, and it's like all those things are fine. It's so many different range of people that I've come in contact with here, mm-hmm. who are engineers who may have the brightest personality, or may be shy, maybe just even tempered. But at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to have to communicate with the client, for sure. As soon as they walk in the door, you're going to have to communicate with the client.
You could be God's gift to engineering, and no one's going to work with you if you're not cool.
Yeah.
You got to be cool. People got to want to be able to sit in a room with you for 8 or 12 hours, and you got to be cool.
Yeah.
If you're not cool, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You don't have to even be that good, but if you're cool, people will want to work with you.
Facts.
And it's just the icing on the cake if you happen to be dope. But you got to be able to relate to somebody. And that's the first thing I try to do whenever I meet someone new, is like, how can I relate with somebody? And I tell the interns when they first walk in, I was like, do you like sports? And if interns will say no, I was like, well, you should try to like get into it a little bit. Right. It's one of the easiest ways to relate to somebody.
Right.
Where are you guys from? Football's on, what team you like.
Right.
And it's like easy to like break the ice. Cause like when you're meeting someone for the first time, it's like awkward and you don't know. It's like, am I trusting this person with my music and my voice? But immediately, if you can just relate to somebody, it immediately just like that tension kind of falls.
Yeah, I heard I can't remember who told me this, but one of the engineers here say like you guys often put on like maybe a game or something on the TV just as they're coming in, just to fill out the temperature of the room.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy. Like Atlanta's like, it's hard. Like not a lot of people are from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And so that's like one of the first things I always ask is like, well, where are you guys from? Are you guys from Atlanta? Where do you live? Because it's just easy to just like start a conversation and make someone comfortable with you.
Exactly.
Because no one's going to like really trust you or trust the decisions you're making on their song unless they trust you or like think that you're cool.
Facts. Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest mistake that new engineers make when working in this particular environment? Because, as you said, and you heard Luther saying, like, this is it's a very unique space in patchwork, and you don't know what you're going to see, who's going to walk in here. But what do you think the biggest mistake newer engineers or even interns make when they first walk in this environment?
I think it's like, it's a developed skill to like have foresight into knowing what's about to come. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can get that is by doing it, which is like, it doesn't really help anybody. But if you can at least start thinking about the first, like when clients come in and we start working, I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing right now. I'm already thinking about what's to come or where I see this thing going.
Got you.
And what happens is, because that's how creatives think. Mm-hmm. Creatives think like lightning in a bottle too. Like they have an idea and then they're going. It's like a train and the train doesn't stop. Once you get on the train doesn't stop. And so I try to get on the train before they do.
Right.
And I'm trying to see where they're going first. And so like when you're young or just starting out and you don't have as enough experience, you can get stuck falling behind and they're ahead of you. And it can get frustrating when when you're not seeing eye to eye or you're not understanding what they're trying to communicate to you. But that's like the biggest thing you can start like training yourself is being like, well, what's gonna come next?
It's like the conductor of the train.
Exactly. Yeah. If you can conduct the train, you're gonna have a great session. It doesn't matter what type of session. It could be vocal session, music session, drum session, overdubs, basics, doesn't matter. If you're conducting the train and we're going, and you can go as fast as you want to go. If the client wants to go at the speed of light, we can go.
Right.
But I'm conducting the train because I already know where we're going.
Right. Facts. That's a great analogy. Let's talk about some of the accolades, some of the accomplishments that you've been able to make in your career so far, winning your first Grammy for a bluegrass album with a group called Infamous String Dusters.
Yep.
And that album was named Laws of Gravity.
Yep.
And did you ever anticipate that your first Grammy would come from a bluegrass album?
I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't think I was ever going to win any type of Grammy or get any type of accolade because it just, I wasn't even thinking about that. I just wanted to make great recordings. And like that feels good to me. And what I like about both of the records that I've won for is that they're great recordings and they're great songs and great artists. And to me, that's more important.
Absolutely.
But there's actually a funny story about how the Infamous String Dusters thing happened, because that all happened through one of my greatest mentors, Billy, of course, who really taught me how to record music. And so he's worked with this band plenty of times, and I wasn't there at the Basics tracking in Nashville. They went to Nashville and tracked all the Basics. But the band had a festival that they did in Virginia. And so Billy was like, hey, like I'm going to Virginia and we got to finish this album. But here's the caveat is we got to build a studio in a log cabin. And I was like, great. And he's like, we're going to be camping. I was like, great. Never been camping before. Not a great camper. He's like, you'll be fine. So he packs up all my gear, camping. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I got like a backpack. This scarred me for life. I don't know if I could ever camp because... So we get to the campgrounds and I set up the tent. And I'm like, this is great.
Right.
I can't wait to camp. And I get in my tent and I look and I'm just kind of like sitting in there and there's a giant spider in the tent.
No.
Giant spider. And I'm like, oh. And so I'm going to go get the spider. And I go to hit it with like a flip-flop and I miss.
Oh, no.
I missed it.
Not a spider's coming at you?
Worse. I don't know where it went.
Oh, no.
So I can't stay in the tent. I get out of the tent. I'm telling Billy, like, there's a spider in the tent. I can't get it. I don't know where it went. I was like, it's big and black and like it's crawling around and I can't find it. So I'm like, Billy, I'm going to sleep in the car for 4 nights. So we ended up building that studio in this log cabin. Like we literally built it from the ground up. We put up padding, ran cabling, had a bunch of microphones, set up a makeshift control room. And it was a cool setup. Like this log cabin, like I don't even think there was windows in this cabin.
Oh, wow.
It was like a log cabin. It like had barely just enough electricity to like do what we needed to do and for the band to come in and finish the record. But I just remember like at the end of like the 4 days of sleeping in the front seat, and it was at a music festival. And it was 24 hours. So like where we parked the car, there was a giant spotlight. And I'm just like trying to sleep in the spotlights, just like shining into the car. There's like,
and you just refused to go back in that tent.
Yeah. And so like I ended up finding the spider at the end of the at the end of the trip because like I was like they were like, okay, we're packing up, like we got to pack up. So like I'm gonna pack up the tent. Like I was like, the spider can't be still in the tent.
It was still there.
Yeah, I start taking the tent apart and I see him crawling on top, and so I knocked him off and I got him. So in the end, I win. In the end, I got the spider. But so that was in like 2017 or 2016. And the record came out and it's so good. Like it's such a good record.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like a year, because the way it released, like it wasn't until like the next round of the Grammys that it got nominated. And I didn't even know, like me and Billy were working on a movie together, like doing a film score. And he was like, oh man, congrats on the Grammy, man. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, we got nominated, the String Dusters. I was like, oh, great. All right, you ready to get to work? And then we just kind of like celebrate. Yeah, we were like, okay, we like celebrated for like 3 minutes. Like, all right, well, we got to get back to work.
That's interesting to me. I hear that a lot, and I talk to people who've been nominated for Grammys or won Grammys, and then it's like the celebration is only but for a moment, and then it's just like, okay, on to the next thing.
Yeah, like Billy didn't go to the Grammys, and I was taking a nap during them. Like I remember waking up and getting text messages, but Billy was like, man, like I had to work, and I was like wrapping mic cables, and it just like is great. But it's like you said, it's all about foresight. It's like once you get on the train doesn't stop. And like I'm already thinking about what's next, just like how he was already like, he's actually the one that gave me that analogy.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide to do in your life, once you get on the train doesn't stop. You gotta go, especially like with creative things and engineering and stuff. And it's like that's why I like that analogy.
Yeah, I really like that analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have another interesting story with your latest Grammy with Anderson .Paak.
Yep.
When he came to Patchwork, you were working with him. How did you discover that song actually made the album? And then going forward, speaking about getting credit for it, because this is or was maybe a couple years ago, a taboo topic of like engineers getting credit for these songs.
Yep.
And, we don't have like the album credits to look at anymore. Or like a physical, I should say, so where you can see like mixed by, mastered by, like we don't have that anymore. So what is the importance, first off, how did you find out? And then what was the significance of you pushing to get credit for that?
This is another story where like things just like, they just like kind of like steamroll, where like I was updating my credits because it had been like a year or so. And it's like I was going through like all my old emails and just like seeing like artists that I worked with and seeing like, and then looking for it on Spotify, like seeing like, did this song ever come out? Did it ever make on anything?
And that's another weird thing though. It's like you really don't know. You're just working on stuff.
Yeah, you're just working on stuff and you don't know. So I remember at the end of my email chain, I saw something from Anderson .Paak. I was like, oh, I wonder like, did he ever like do anything with this song or did it ever come out? And so like I just like typed the song in on Spotify and it came up. And I was like, no way.
Right.
So I click on the song and I was like, oh yeah.
Which song is it again?
It's Chosen One.
Chosen One, yeah.
Yeah.
Really good one.
And so I click on, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely know this song. And it was weird how it happened. Like I was doing this like in late April and the record had come out like maybe a week or two before. So had I not waited to like do this, I probably wouldn't have found out about it until like way later.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, I definitely know this song. I went to my email and I still had like the original email that I sent him from like the recording session.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, wow, like, this is great. Like I'm on this record. And I started listening to the record and I'm like, there's like legends on this record and it like sounds really good. And like all the songs are great. And so I was like, we did this session a long time ago. I was like, let me see if maybe there's like any type of credit there. And so I'm like researching like credits and it wasn't there. And I don't blame anyone. It's no fault of anyone's own. Like we had worked on the song a long time. And once it left, it's like, oh, who knows where it went. But I was on YouTube one day looking at like videos for like, the Anderson .Paak record. And I came across the main trailer for the album, the Ventura trailer. And it's only like a 2-minute video. And the video is like, when it starts, it's him like talking to Dr. Dre about, the project and stuff. But about like 45 seconds into the video is me, Anderson .Paak, and his guitar player in the B room at 995 working on the record.
You're on the video.
I'm in the trailer. I mean, it's the back of my head and like I do one of these, but I'm like right there and I'm like, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in the trailer. And so, I know you can add credits after the fact. And so like I hit Curtis up and I was like, do you think we have any like contacts or can we look up, can we do the paper trail and find who we can talk to get credit on it? And so he sent some feelers out to go like see who, if anyone knew like where he was signed to or, who was managing or whatever. But it just so happened that maybe a week or so later, he actually started booking time here again. And so we had like direct
contact, yeah,
to the woman Crystal who like runs his stuff, and she was able to, get the credit, and it ended up getting nominated and ended up winning, which is cool. Yeah, and it was cool about both of the records is it's recording music. That Anderson .Paak record, like we recorded, obviously their vocals, but like there was like the guitars, the bass, the keys, there was like multiple elements to it, which was like, it just makes it feel cool.
Yeah, it's a different feeling when you actually can record instruments, live instrumentation.
And he remembered me. Like when he came back, maybe like a month ago, we were in here and we did like a marathon, like 20-hour session. When he walked in, he looked at me, he's like, oh yeah, you did that song. You could be the chosen one. And I was like, yeah, that's me.
I love him. He's a very easygoing, really dope
cool.
guy. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, congrats on the Grammy.
Yeah.
And congrats on the many Grammys to come for sure. So another thing that I have to talk about, I know we have to get going soon, but you're usually the guy they call here. Even when I worked at the front desk, it was always like, if a network called here, you're the guy that's like running the session.
Oh.
Like, I'm talking TV networks.
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
speak of network opportunities, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I've been on so many television shows.
You've been on a lot of shows.
Honestly, Oz is the one that started that. He's like, oh yeah, we got a superstar in here. We'll put, if you got MTV, VH1, we got a guy for you. And so like I started being on like all these television shows, like literally like maybe like 10 or 12 like reality television shows where like they're doing a shot in the studio. And it was actually really cool because like I'm actually really into reality TV. Like I love 90 Day Fiance.
Oh my God, 90 Day Fiance is so strange.
I love Love Island. Like I love reality TV.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to like see all these like Atlanta-based reality TV shows, like and how they work and how they set it up, and it's really cool and really fun. But I just like it was so crazy. Like I had family members reach out to me that I hadn't spoken to in years, being like, I think I just saw you on Preachers of Atlanta. Was that you, or am I like tripping? And I'm just like, yeah, that was me. And it's like, I'll go find it. Like,
Superstar Luke.
Yeah, I'd go DVR and I'd be like, oh yeah, that is, yeah, cool. Yeah. And then, the moment passes because like, I'm on the train looking forward. Yeah.
Do you have a preference on who you work with or in terms of clients, or are you just like down for it?
Yeah.
Down for it all.
The thing that people forget about recording is you're supposed to have fun. Recording's fun, and like it's so easy to get like hampered down by like negative energy in a recording studio because everything's under a magnifying glass, and it's easy to latch on to like a negative thing, like, oh, I'm not singing that great, oh, I'm not playing that great. But as long as you approach anything that you're doing recording wise with fun, it's going to be great. So whether, it doesn't matter if it's a rap session, R&B, rock session, country, we're doing a band, doing a choir, I'm coming to have fun. And when you put that energy out there, it makes people relax and they start having fun. And when people start having fun, they make great recordings.
Yeah, absolutely.
The greatest recordings were like, and I even think it may have been Quincy Jones. I can't remember exactly, but someone had this quote saying that in the studio, like it was like 20% work, 80% laughter. And it's like, it really is the case. The sessions that are always the funnest, or have a great time, or there's something great happening, good vibe, that's where the great songs come out. If you start nitpicking things and creating like problems that don't even exist, that's where like, and then songs don't come out great, and then they start having like these weird like emotions attached to them. It's like, even if it's a great song, it's like, oh, like there's like this weird energy with this song. It like ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what you do. And it's the same thing. If I was working a 9 to 5, I would do the same thing. Like approach today. If today my job was to do databases, like I was in 11th grade, I'm going to have fun doing databases. Because if you just bring that energy, it's going to make everything go great.
Absolutely. Yeah, Luke, you always have a really positive demeanor and like just a good energy and spirit about you. I want to know if you have any advice to artists in the recording process, like aside from bringing in good energy, like setting up maybe even the atmosphere of the studio for I mean, that's what you would do as the engineer, but like, what would you advise to an artist if it's their first time recording ever?
Yeah. The crazy thing is some of the most famous people I've recorded, so like including Anderson .Paak or Tony Braxton even, you can't take yourself too serious. Like when they come to the studio, they're coming to have a good time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think when you're just starting out, it's like you come to the studio and it's super serious and like, okay, we're going to work and we're going to do this. It's like, man, they're just showing up and they're just going to sing a song and they're going to have a great time. And I mean, it was great listening to Tony Braxton obviously sing.
Yeah, I'm like, how was that experience?
It's incredible. It's incredible. The voice comes through the speakers and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Tony Braxton.
Right.
And then her sister was the next day, Tamar. And it's just like great, but like they come and they just like, they don't take themselves too serious, even though they're huge celebrities. When Anderson .Paak came, like he is so chill and just like, yeah, we're just going to try it. I have this idea. We're going to try it. If it doesn't work out, it's cool. It's not the end of the day. His band is sick. It's like, they're going to have an idea. We're going to try it, So it's like, sometimes I think when you come to like a big commercial space, it can be like daunting and like, okay, we're here to like work. It's like, no, man, like when you go play basketball, you're going to go have fun. Like recording's kind of like a sport, like you got to practice it. You got to put the free throws up. It's a different muscle than performing. And so my advice to any artist, and this is also for like engineers, producers, artists, don't matter, is not to be so hard on yourself. It's art, it's fun, it's music. If nothing comes out of it, it's okay. You can do it again tomorrow and do a different idea. You know, people get hung up on small things, and it's like, man, you're killing your own energy.
Facts. I agree. Luke, you mentioned early on in the conversation that you were doing some music stuff. What do you have up for yourself, and like beyond just like engineering and all the things that you do at the studio?
Yeah, me and my buddies, we're like making tracks. We're writing songs. They're like country songs, but they lean a little bit more pop. And so it's got me good. It's got me playing guitar again, which is cool.
How long has it been since you played guitar?
I mean, I took like a serious break because like I got so busy recording and mixing and stuff that like it's hard to like just find the time to sit down and just play. But like I was like at the start of the new year, I was like, oh, you know, I want to start playing. I want to start recording. I want to start writing more music. And so like I'm starting to like create like a collective here in Atlanta of like musicians and writers and, you know, singers and stuff. And I just want to be able to like make songs and make tracks. And if something comes of them, great. If not, at least it was still fun.
Exactly.
The greatest part about working in the music industry is I'm scrapbooking my life. I have this moment every 2 or 3 years where like I'm cleaning out hard drives and I see all the names that I've worked with and I see the dates and I can remember exactly where I was and who I was as a person.
That's so true.
And so like that's another thing I tell artists. I was like, man, even if nothing happens from this music thing and you don't make it to be a movie star, at least you documented your life.
Facts.
This stuff is forever. It'll live forever. It'll last before, if you leave tomorrow, it'll be here and will carry on your name and your experiences.
That's true.
And so like I tell that to artists, they're like, oh, like you know, what happens if I don't make it or this? I'm like, well, man, you're like on a real magical journey here of like creating this thing that you can look back on and it'll be forever and you can pass it down and it'll tell your story for you. And that's really powerful. And I think that gives artists like some ownership of like the experience and the ride that they're on. You know, because some people do realize it. Like some people, like some of the bands and stuff I work with, they know they're not going to be Beyonce. Then it's just like a reality. They're cool. They just want to make music. But once they realize that, yeah, like I am documenting my life, I am creating a legacy for myself that can be passed on down, it gives them some pride and ownership into the art that they're creating.
Absolutely.
And so I feel that too.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you're making music again.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun.
It feels good. Yeah, I'm excited for all that you do, Luke. I wish we had more time, but as always, you're still out here dropping gems, creating content for aspiring engineers and creatives with the Engineers Corner. Yes. Can we expect some more episodes soon?
Yeah, I would like to. I'm all about, I love talking, you know? And, you know, I want to say like, the one thing you can't forget is appreciation of what happened before. Like I wouldn't have been able to do any of this if it weren't for Kurt, if it weren't for Mike, for Corey, Miles, Exit, Billy. Like they set the blueprint for my life. I was just able to build the house. They gave me the pathway, they gave me the roadmap, and I just followed the directions. And if it weren't for any of these people, none of this would have happened. What I'm doing is great and everything I do is cool and great. But if it weren't for the people that helped pass you the ball,
empower you.
You can't make a bucket if you don't have the ball. And like that's just like, so I just want to make sure like I send that out there that I'm appreciative to everyone that's like helped me.
And I'm appreciative of you because you always sit there and you make sure that I sound great and that my guests are pleased and that you create an environment and an atmosphere for little old me to do my job and empower me. So thank you so much, Luke. And I'm sure I'll be working with you soon.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Who knows? But yes, tell them where they can find you if they want to get in touch, if they want to book a session, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I'm part of the Antisocial Club. Social media freaks me out. It's like, the internet freaks me out. Like, what is the internet? Why does it exist? Like, you know, I'm older than Google. We're older than Google. It's like, it's weird. Me and Toya looked this up. We're older than Amazon. We're older than Google. Like,
how old is Google?
I think it came out, I think they were founded in 97.
Oh, wow.
Or 95 maybe.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, man, like what is the internet? And so it freaks me out. But I do have an account on Instagram.
Okay.
It's just my name.
Yeah.
But I don't post much because it freaks me out. Like cameras freak me out. Like what's a camera? How do they work? How is it able to capture this thing? And then it's just like,
I'm a strange individual.
Yeah, think about it. Like, microphones. Dude, we could do an episode on just cameras and microphones. But yeah.
So you're on Instagram, but don't really post much. But they can get in touch with you other ways, like calling studio. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So thank you to Luke. As always, you guys can find us on social media. We actually do post IDM Podcast, as well as myself, Sammy Approved, on all social media platforms. Thank you so much, Luke.
Yeah, thanks.
Sonically superior.